What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by Virtual Intelligence, your premier partner for client-facing and back-office virtual employees. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York, and I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald, founder of Sound Harbor Insurance in beautiful, sunny, warm Long Island, New York. Mr. Fitzgerald, how are we doing today?
Dude, doing phenomenal. Got a couple of good projects I'm working on, and some of those projects are related to social media. So I'm pumped to have Jeff on today and get into the conversation.
Well, what a great time for you to join us then, Sean, because you are in the right place for this conversation. We're going to jump right into it as we normally do, folks, and welcome Jeff White, who is the social media manager with Hawksoft. Jeff, how are you today?
As I said, I'm doing great. No complaints here. We're past we're in decent weather here in the South now, or at least, I say the South, Atlanta, even though we're in the South, but we're up there. So no, we're doing good today.
You're South for me. I can tell you that you're real South.
Yep.
All right, let's jump into it. Jeff, tell us just about yourself. We'll talk about the stuff we want to talk to everybody. We're going to talk about social media today, the best ways for social media to be practiced inside the insurance industry, things you should do, things you should avoid, and those different things with Jeff's expertise. But for a minute here, Jeff, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, I'll just kind of keep this quick. So I have a weird background, but I'm originally from Seattle and Chicago. And so about 9 years ago, I got an internship here down in Atlanta, Georgia, as I was living in Seattle. And I always tell this story because it's near and dear to my heart. But I got in my 87 Camry and drove it 2,700 miles across the country, whatever it was, for an internship here in Georgia. And I got it, and it was in social media, and I just kind of kept rolling with it. They didn't have any real job description for me, and it was a real I took it and ran with it, and I kind of made myself, valuable to them. So that's kind of how I got started in social media a little bit. I did a little in school, but then I worked for this company for about 6 years, and then I made the transition to insurance as a logical one. My past company was it was college sports or collegiate athletics, and then I made the shift to insurance, which is very logical. So I've been at Hawksoft since March of 21, I think. So coming up on 4 years here. That's crazy to think about. But yeah, so that's just a little bit about me. Live outside Atlanta, Georgia. And yeah, just enjoying the weather, enjoying it down here. So
it's fantastic.
Nice. So Jeff, can you go into your role a little more in detail at Hawksoft, and then just kind of how it's evolved from when you got there in 21 to today from the social media standpoint?
Yeah, so there was nobody in this position before me, and they just kind of were looking. A big thing at Hawksoft is they hire based on people, so I may not have been the most qualified, but they liked who I was, and they liked my work in the past. So it was just very basic at the beginning, manage Facebook, manage what else did we have? We didn't have Instagram yet. We had LinkedIn, and we had Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. And then it kind of evolved from there. I was just managing it, doing fun campaigns. But then I kind of, told them that I'm dangerous with video and creating content. And then I got roped into producing our podcast with our co-host, Kenny Hendricks, who the joke is that, he's the one that has the best microphone in the office. So that's why he's the host. And so it started off very basic, managing 3 platforms. But now I'm doing the podcast, which is so intertwined, right, with social media content. And then we added Instagram in September of 22 or August of 22. And that, we really blossomed on there. I mean, we're obviously not thousands of followers, but we're doing good, and we're getting up there. So it's just evolved because it was very basic at the beginning. There was no groundwork. And then now it's there's a lot of video involved. There's a lot of, editing involved with the podcast, and while still managing and creating new campaigns, highlighting insurance agents.
So let's jump right into it. Working in the insurance space, working with agents, working with independent agents, you see how different agents are doing social media out there, how they're attacking it, how they're utilizing it. What is right off the bat the biggest mistake that you see people are doing when it comes to social media? And I want to preface that with, it can be a very scary thing for somebody to try to do. So maybe they try to do a little bit of nothing. But what I've learned is if you're doing a little bit of whatever and it's still just going to dead places and you're not intentional with it, it may not be worth the time, right? Especially with the algorithms, all that high level stuff that we don't have time to get into today. But right off the bat, what's the biggest mistakes that you see that our agents are using social media?
I think the biggest mistakes kind of with social media is the first thing that came to mind, was I'm trying not to say just very canned content that's not specific, content that's just, stock photos with not, there's no logo from your company on there. And it's just like, I presented actually recently at a conference in West Virginia to independent insurance agent, and I was like, independent insurance agents. And I was like, okay, so people are on social media for 2.5 hours a day, probably more, but like that's what the number I read. But like, how do you get people to stop, right? How do you get people to want to digest and look at your stuff? And seeing a stock photo of, just like a snowblower. One that sticks to mind was like, I saw a video of someone just snowblowing and they're like, here's some snowblower safety tips. And I'm like, okay, cool. But like, how is that different? It'd be a lot cooler if, like Steven, for example, went out and was at his snowblower, like talking to a camera and like, like pointing at things. Is better than just a stock photo they got off of, Adobe, stock or something like that. I think that's a big one. And then another one I kind of, agents get that FOMO, right? Whether it's with technology or with social media or, a new technology partner, but like, it's just joining a platform just because, they think they need to be somewhere. They're like, oh, well, we need to be there because blah, blah, blah. And they get on there, they don't really have a strategy and then it sits, right? And so it's just sometimes, I'll click on independent insurance agents and look at their Facebook and they haven't posted since 2021. I'm like, okay, then why are you here? You know what I mean? Like, and so I think that's just a big one too, is you got to have a purpose for where you're at and don't just join a platform just because. And then my last one, a common mistake is a lot of people just see social media as a check mark. They don't really give it the love it deserves, correct? You know what I mean? Like, so they just go, okay, I did my post for the day. I'm done. Like, put more thought into it. How does everything contribute to your overall plan, to your core values, to your North Star? Like, I don't know. They just see it as a check mark and it's just another task when really you should put some more thought behind it, I think.
I'm with you, Jeff. I'm with you on all those things. And I would add one because I'm guilty of it. And that's consistency, being consistent with the content you post on social. I'll tell you guys straight out, this podcast has been the most consistent thing I've done on social. And it is by far driven the most results.
Yep.
And I think when you're consistent with doing the content, there's something about it. And Steven and I talk all the time. You pick up on little things every new video. There's always a little something. Hey, should we change this thumbnail? Hey, should we change this title? Hey, should we start doing timestamps? Hey, should we start doing this? And then over time, the production and the quality and the content gets improved and a little better, And there's no way to do that unless you're consistent with it. That's just that's my opinion.
And that's a good little segue for me, or at least, I remember people always kind of ask me like, what's the best practice of social media or how to manage social media? And I always come back to three things. It's actually what I talked about at this talk in West Virginia, but it was number one was be consistent. Excuse me. Number one was be consistent, because how else do you expect yourself to be successful? You're not going to post once and get 10 leads. You know what I mean? It's just not going to happen.
Sean probably would, but that's just how he
okay. So. Maybe Sean would, but most people. And then, the other one is be genuine. Like, again, go back to like, the genuine content, standing out from the rest, figure out what makes you different, stuff like that. Because again, there's a lot of us, there's a lot of noise in general in this world. And so how do you kind of stand out? And then, like I said, kind of like that, be patient. You're not going to get 10 leads right away from a post. We actually had a post that like it was on LinkedIn and it got like 11 signups for events, but it was just about being consistent. Right. And so it was 3 months after we opened up registration for it, but it just so happened to be this one LinkedIn post somehow hit and in a certain way. Right. And so it's just, you got to be patient, and that's, unless you just go in the whole virality of it, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Jeff, let me ask you, because I think, the more I think about this and I think of why was I not consistent with certain things on social media I was doing. And a lot of it came down to not being able to putting too much on my plate. I want to grow my agency, and then I'm over here trying to do social media, and I don't make time for it, and I don't have the right team in place. I don't have the right people in place, and it gets overwhelming, and then you just stop doing it. Right? That's my experience anyway with certain things on social. So how do you and I think why the podcast, I've been able to stay way more consistent with it is A, I have Steven as an accountability partner. And then B, we have somebody who helps post all the episodes, edit the content, and we don't have to be involved with a lot of that stuff. So on your side of things, how are you, pushing out the content? Do you have a scheduler you use? Is there any like tools or technology you use that helps you like schedule things out or stay more consistent with the content?
Yeah, so at Hawksoft we have HubSpot just because we have emails, and so that also includes a little social media with it. I think at some point the goal is to get a more social dedicated platform like a Sprout Social or Buffer or something, but just HubSpot works for us right now. And that's what I use mostly. And for our strategy, like you said about getting overwhelmed, you just got to start small and see what you can, do over time, right? Like, don't just come out of the gates and be like, I'm going 3 a week and blah, blah, blah. And then, 2 weeks in, you're like, I'm tired. Like, just go to twice a week, once a week, like stuff like that. So that's for us. Like if you look at Hawksoft social media, it's, about twice a week on most platforms. And then that's, if I got something and I want to post it, I'll usually wait until like I need to post to fill in just because I want to keep that cadence up. Sometimes I'll do a third. But that's just kind of, it's okay. You don't need to post 6 times and post that Saturday at the perfect time or 4 a.m. on Thursdays or something like that.
Are you posting through the scheduling through HubSpot or you?
Yeah, I'm posting it. Well, most of the time I'm scheduling it through HubSpot.
Gotcha.
Except for Facebook Reels, you can't do that. Instagram, you can. Thank God. But then it's funny, right? Because like the new best practices put links in the comments, right? So it's great that I schedule it, but then I need to give myself a reminder to put the link in the comments, right? So then my calendar is just like chock full of little 5-minute things.
Yeah, well, not to get too technical, but I've heard too, and I don't know how accurate it is. I'm not smart enough to know, but I thought I could have sworn like using a scheduler could affect the like algorithms. I don't know if that's every platform or specific ones, or have you seen anything with like posting it specific on the platform versus putting it in HubSpot
natively?
Yeah.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know if something performs well or better just because you post it natively in the platform. It would make sense, right? But that's, a tinfoil hat, right? Because they're tinfoil theory, like, they want you to post in the platform. That's what I call those. But I do, at least for X, like I schedule them just like, I have like my own personal Twitter account that I just schedule them there.
Gotcha.
And they do good too. But yeah, I've thought of that too. But then I hit a point where I can't. That's just a lot. You know what I mean? Like imagine
it's so much to do.
6 or 7 posts and you got to open up each platform every week and whatnot. So,
well, allow me to bring Sean back from the moon real quick. We're going to come back down to earth and talk about just getting started and being consistent. I think the biggest thing, especially with this podcast, your point, Sean, that we found is to be intentional with planning it, but be intentional of the continuation of that planning. So like, and full transparency, we haven't been very good at it, but we try to meet on Monday mornings to discuss the podcast for a quick 15-minute call. It's not an hour meeting. It's not whatever. It's here's the things we want to hit. Are we hitting these? Are we good for this week? Are we good with guests? Are we good? Blah, 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 blah. And then my own, I have the podcast that I do on the side that's more localized. But for me, it was super important. And Jeff, I want to hear your feedback on this. For me, it was super important to find something that I know as a scratch agent, doing a second podcast was going to be crazy, try to fit in the time thing. So what did I do? I made it a shorter type of interview, something that I could do in bulk, something that I could do where I could batch them ahead of time. And before I started the first episode and even released it, I had 20 recorded and edited. So I was already that far ahead. And I really now just have to take 1 2-hour block every month to do the recordings for that, batch them, and we're that far ahead. But the reason I say that and explain it is because in my opinion, there's nothing worse than coming out guns blazing, bats swinging that we got this new thing. We're doing this new podcast. We're doing this new show. We're getting involved in social media. And then to your point, Jeff, you go to the Facebook page, you haven't posted in a year. Right. So I think all these great tools that we're talking about, all these abilities to schedule, and is fantastic, but it just comes down to like time blocking it, being intentional about it, and making sure you're holding yourself accountable to make it happen, and then maybe implement those different things. But if you're going from nothing to that, I mean, Jeff, I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the time blocking is so helpful, right? I mean, you got to figure out what, how it's going to work for you, or what's the best way for it. So, like, is it time blocking? Is it just, sitting down for an hour at the beginning of the week and scheduling everything out for the week? Stuff like that. For us, for Hawksoft, I always try to be 2 weeks ahead of time, no matter what. Like, so everything, for this week and next week should be scheduled and locked and loaded. And so I just think that's just kind of important to kind of know what works for you, and also to find something that you're obviously passionate about. Like Steven, I've think I've watched a couple of your 5 with T5, I believe that's the other one, right? And it's great. It's like a whole nother, it's something that's you like and you're passionate about. And like, that kind of helps you also, is like, everybody in this industry, we're in here because we like it, right? Or like, typically, I don't know, but what I mean? You started your own agency because you like it, you like this industry. And so that passion kind of, I think, helps bleed through too a little bit in creating the content and, staying consistent.
Yeah. I want to pivot the conversation real quick. I can't remember exactly the source of where I got this from. It was a book of some sort, but regardless, it was about 6 months ago. It was a real shift for me in my branding and my marketing and my videos and whatever it is, total across the board. Of nobody really cares about the products or whatever. In our case, let's talk insurance. Nobody really cares about all the endorsements that you should have. Nobody really cares about what the best company is we offer. They want to know somebody who does. And to pivot that into the branding conversation, your snowblower example is perfect. Oh, here's your tips about snowblowers. People, okay, maybe some people will stop and look at that. But if you do a funny video, like you said, of me going down talking about snowblowers, whatever, and tie that into tying back into my brand, it was that statement that really just shifted my mind of nobody really cares what the water backup is and why that's important. They just want to know somebody who's going to take care of them, to know that that's important. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of just to echo a little bit, here at Hawksoft, we always say we're not in the software business, we're in the relationship business, right? We're all about people. It's really about just kind of, you want that peace of mind to say, okay, yeah, I don't know what that is with insurance, but I know somebody who does. And I just think that is super important. And that's, everybody does, we say here, it's like all AMSs do like the same, 75, 80% of the, same things, right? But like, how do you differentiate yourself? How does Steven stands out from the rest of the agents in his community because he does these fun videos and he does this podcast and he's very involved in the community, right? But that's to say, there are some agents that don't do all that are still successful, which is great and good for them. That's I guess the beauty of the insurance industry, right? Is like, you can kind of choose your own adventure. You can go kind of, the more traditional route and head to the ground and write insurance and be successful, or you also can be a business owner and kind of, go that route and enjoy it and do things that you really care about in your community.
Well, to your point, the social media is just one additional piece of the pie.
Yeah.
Right. And think of it from a branding standpoint. It's an additional piece of the pie that, if you're, like I've always said with social media, the goal is to have somebody think they know me without knowing me. So I go to that networking event and meet them for the first time face to face, but maybe they know, oh, he's the insurance guy, I saw one of his videos, whatever. It's just one piece of that pie. So whether you're doing community marketing, Google ads, whatever it is, it's just tying in and justifying the rest of the efforts that you're making.
Yeah. And like, I told myself, I won't get too existential, but as humans, we just like familiarity, right?
Yeah.
It's like the fact that people see you and recognize you, and what they see your colors, you're blue, and I believe you have orange. You know what I mean? Like, you see the colors of the logo, you see the logo, and you're familiar with it. So then the next time they're out at a community event, the next time they're out at a farmer's market or something, and you're there, they'll see you and they feel like they'll know you, and you can walk up to them. And I just think that's very important. And social media helps with that a lot, right? Because like you said, it's another slice of the marketing pie, but it's something that agents can't just like say, you know what, we don't need it, we'll just leave social media over here. It's a part of your brand. Like, you can have the prettiest website in the world, but if you're not posting on social media, what does a customer think of that, right? They say, oh, they're not active. What does that mean? Does that mean they're not going to be active with me as a client? You know what I mean? Like, it's important to kind of be there and be where your customers are and be active and create those digital relationships even further. You know, social media gives you that opportunity, right? And I think a lot of times people, you know, I hate social media, blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, change your mind a little bit about it and further that relationship. You know, before you talk to a prospect, you do so much research about them, right? You'll figure out everything you need to know about them. It's like, well, social media is a way to figure out more about them. And also it's like, it's just another way to kind of round out that relationship. And I think it does get overlooked. And I would argue that, you know, you said it's a piece of a pie. I just think it's getting bigger, you know, as we get like, you know, more into the digital age for sure. Cause you know, when I started doing social media, 10 years ago, it was different. Everybody's like, we'll just hire the youngest person there, right, to run the Facebook page. But now it's like, it's a serious thing that you need to like dedicate some money to for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's a great point. I love how that ties into the consistency we were talking about prior to and you know, I think of like when I look to hire a coach or a mentor or someone like that, and I look at their social and I see that they're extremely consistent. That helps build their credibility and reputation, you know? And I'm like, man, that's somebody I want to be around, someone who stays consistent, they're professional. And that all ties into consistency. And then also too, the last thing I wanted to touch on was about the snowblower story that you gave, which I think was phenomenal.
Yeah, sure.
Is I think people, when they see the video of Steven out blowing some snow, they're gonna look at that and they're gonna be curious. What's Steven doing outside? Where is he? You know, there's a sense of, I feel like people are just curious. And I had a conversation with our friend Taylor about this a few months ago, and we were looking over some of his content, and he realized the content that he was posting that performed the best was content where he was like at an airport walking around doing a video, you know, and it was in all these places where like the setting was very interesting and it made you curious, like, where is he? What's he doing? Where's he going? You know? And I think the curiosity does play a big role in social media. So I thought that was a great point with the snowblower story.
So we've hit the consistency part, which I think is key. The preparation part, which is probably even better, about being ready for that. But and we talked a little bit about the do's and don'ts of what you're doing. What are some general tips that you found in your expertise and everything that you do about growing an audience and engaging with people? Past, you know, we talked a lot about Be Different, snowblower example, but what are some general tips of growing an audience for whatever media outlet you decide to go through?
Yeah, I think a very simple one is respond to people, interact with them. I don't know. Like I think sometimes you see all these brands, right? I'll use this example, you know, I'll admit, I don't know. So Chili's, the restaurant did like just like a X contest, right? Or like a Twitter contest. I still hate saying X, but you know, it was like retweet us to why Chili's is your favorite. And I think it's funny. And I retweeted it. And I was like, you know, because the sizzling fajitas or whatever. That tweet got like 50 impressions, right? Nobody saw it, but they responded to me, and like it made me feel closer to them as a brand. And like, no matter how big you are, you know, you should always try and interact with your audience. Like they put the thought and the process to comment on your stuff, respond to them. Like, you know, if you're on Instagram, I think you've seen Steven, but we follow you. And so that's me. And so, you know, I'll go through our Instagram stories and I'll see you posted like a new podcast episode and I'll like heart it or I'll say fire or something. Like it doesn't like that took me like half a second to do. And it just shows like Steven sees that like, oh, there's somebody there at Hawksoft that saw this, or there's someone at this agency that saw this, and it's interacting with them. And so I think that's a really important tip that a lot of people don't. I mean, I know it's daunting, but let's be real. We're insurance agents. We're not going to get 100 comments on each post, right? It's just, you know, we might get a handful and then you respond to them and it's just fun and they like it more. And, you know, for Hawksoft or for anyone in general, but like find that unique content that kind of just is what your agency's about, or highlight the people in your office. I've seen a lot of agencies that I see content with people in their office do so much better than just generic content, right? So like, it's like, oh, the employee of the month is so-and-so, and this is some more about her. And it's just, people always want to see smiling faces. They don't want to see images with text. I have a meme somewhere on my computer. I should have got it, but it was like, you know, an agency saying they have a great social media strategy, and then it's a screenshot of their Instagram grid, they call it, right, where it shows all their posts, and it's just like Happy Thanksgiving, Happy Christmas, Happy Boxing Day, and it's like, you know, Happy National Taco Day, or you know what I mean? And it's just like, you don't have a good strategy. Like, find something unique, and I would say you find that unique thing about your agency and just kind of go from there. And you don't have to post 3 times a week. You don't have to do, you know, post at, you know, 9:00 at night because everybody's home. Like, figure out what works from you, and people relate to that genuine content. They want to interact with it more. They want to see people. They just, I don't know. We want to connect with people, another existential, whatever. But you know what I mean? Like, we just want to connect with one another. It's as simple as that. So I think it's important to do that and to find unique content. And then, you know, something for Hawksoft, or, you know, to facilitate that interaction more, you know, like commenting would be to do giveaways. I think you might have, Steven, because I've seen your social media. Sorry, Sean, I don't follow you guys.
Yes,
I typically only follow customers, but I'll go find you after this, and I'll go follow you. But as Hawksoft, we usually just, I don't know, it depends. But you know, little giveaways here and there, right, are just fun. Like, we do one once a month with Hawksoft. It's we just call it Hawksoft Connect, where we say, like, you know, I think we did one yesterday or early this week, and it was, you know, comment with a GIF of your fall mood, like the trees are falling, like, what's your GIF? And people posted like football or food and all this kind of fun stuff. And like, it's something silly, but it's fun. And then we're going to send them a Hawksoft crossbody bag. Like, you know, that boosted up our impressions probably a little bit more because people are commenting. And it's, again, it's like kind of a win-win a little bit. Like, obviously don't do it all the time, but you know, you boost your impressions, so you'll go up in their feed and their algorithm. But then also, like, you're developing that relationship more with that person, because like I said, you know, every time someone commented, I would heart it or I'd like it as Hawksoft, right? So like, acknowledging that I saw it, or like somebody posted something really silly and I comment back and I was like, I don't know what we're looking at, but I'm in, you know what I mean? Like, something like that, I think is super important. And, you know, once a month, once every other month, just for fun, just to kind of, you know, we did it originally, I think, to kind of help us grow on Instagram, because our Instagram was a little, I mean, we started from ground zero. We started from zero. So now we're over 500 followers, which again is not like insane, but it was still pretty good. So I think those few things are just important, is just to interact them with more, you know. Social media, it's it brings people together a lot, but you know, it also separates. So like, try and stay with your, you know, clients and respond to them, and nurture that relationship, and you know, just kind of enjoy that. So that's what I would say is your tips for engaging digitally. The number one is post some fun, have fun with it though too, you know, like, just don't see it as a check mark. Like, people can see it. Like, people notice, they see so much content all day, right? They'll know if your stuff isn't fun, or you're not enjoying it, or you're not genuine, right?
So you're saying we shouldn't just use the carriers flyers that they give to us and post them out onto our social media? Is that what you're saying?
I will let the listeners make that decision for themselves. I'm not going to say anything in regard to carriers content. I do think it's nice that they, like, you know, provide agencies with stuff, but I think it would almost be a better use of an agent's time to like see it and then like bounce off of it. You know what I mean? Like, figure out how they can do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because honestly, that snowblower example was from
that's a great piece of advice, because I think a lot of people have struggles with, what am I going to do? What am I going to talk about? And that's the next thing I kind of wanted to pivot to. I wanted to talk, and I want to put Sean in the hot seat here, because I enjoy doing that, but talk about being vulnerable with social media. It's tough, right? I mean, by far, the best things that I do on social media are the stupid day in the life photos, and I feel stupid doing them. And you know, you have the talk over of, oh, here I am, this is what I'm doing, blah, blah, blah. But people love it. Why? Because it's relatable. They can see the back end of what their insurance agent is actually doing. They're curious. Right, exactly. And Sean, you did a recent post recently and sent it to me. It was like, just put this out there, made me feel uncomfortable, all that. Like, but you did it. It got great impressions. It got great conversations. I think you just have to be prepared and understand. And I think, I don't know how to word this without wording it exactly this way, but people don't care as much as you think they do, right? People don't care as much about this vulnerable post you put out as much as you think to do, because they're scrolling on to the next one unless you make it that engaging and all of that. But Sean, I don't know if there's anything you want to, again, putting you in the hot seat because I know you went through this recently, but anything you want to expand on that?
So a good quote I just heard from my good friend Ed Milet is, "Worry is a wasted use of imagination." So
Man, that's fantastic.
a lot of the social media stuff that, I've done, Stephen, we've done almost 100 episodes of the podcast, all video. Before this podcast, I did 50 plus episodes of the Business Journey podcast, which is a separate local podcast I had. And to this day, I still feel a little weird posting a video, regardless of what it's about. I just still feel a little something, I don't even know what that something is. Maybe it's a little bit of worry. But at the end of the day, I think, that worry that you have, it does limit your imagination. So you need to just put it out there. Do you guys know the TikTok story with the guy who, the guy with the ocean spray? He did the ocean spray video on the skateboard a while back. Yeah. And like ocean spray sold out of everything they had. When they interviewed that guy, he said he's like, I almost didn't post it because I was like nervous. I didn't really know what people would think of it. And then he's like, I just said, screw it. And then I just posted it.
That guy. And
I know. And I always just think of, I know it sounds crazy, but I always think of it like that. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Just put yourself out there, just post it. I personally like to put goals and stuff out there on social media because I feel like it almost holds me accountable to a sense too. Like I love to post my workouts because I know if I stop posting them, people are going to be like, yo, where you at, Sean? So it's one of those things that just helps me. It helps hold me accountable, and B, it pushes me closer to the goal. So I think
and diving deeper into that too, Sean. Yeah. The Scratch Agency podcast, the name of the podcast, the audience that we have, people want to be a part of the journey, especially your supporters.
100%.
And just like I said, the day in the life video, I've also had great reactions with taking a picture of me working in the dark porch of my house at 11 o'clock at night saying, man, today was a long day, blah, blah, blah. Here's a step forward we did for the business.
Great
blah, blah, blah. Here's what we're doing. And people love that because they feel they're a part of the journey. They're part of what you're trying to do. They're a part of knowing what you're doing when you're doing. You're giving them the behind the scenes look, whether it's an insurance agency or whatever it is. And again, those are vulnerable, but that ties into everything we've talked about already about being relatable, being, yourself, just doing it, posting it, and all those things.
Yeah, just documenting, right? Like, again, it all comes back to that curiosity. Those day in the life videos you do, those, I'm like, oh, now I get same thing like the snowblower. Where's Steven at? What's he doing? I'm curious, So I feel like if you just look at content from a documenting standpoint, which we've all heard Gary Vee say 10,000 times, there is a lot of power that can come just from doing that. So if you're struggling with ideas, just start with documenting your day,
Yeah.
I like that too, but also document your day, but also just follow people that you like. You know what I mean? Like just follow content that you like. Like, when I came to Hawksoft, they're like, we kind of know what we want to do, but here, kind of go look around. It's like, I followed the big guns, I followed the Parody, we already followed Paradiso, but Bradley Flower, Scott Howe, all of them. And it's, Daniel's song. I'm just trying to think, but just kind of seeing what they did and see what works. Right. And, it is about being vulnerable a little bit. It is about, just kind of, you do kind of feel silly, right? I think it's different a little bit at Hawksoft because I'm hiding behind, the Hawksoft logo and stuff. But, sometimes, we'll I don't know, you'll push the buttons and it's okay because, you're meant to be a little uncomfortable. We all just kind of want to do this and we're in this together. Again, man, I got too existential, but you know what I mean? We want that community. We just want, we want to see Steven, working late at night because we've all been there. Right. And so I think
it's relatable.
Yeah, it's relatable. And so it's just super simple. And that is a good place to start. I like that. Just kind of documenting your day, documenting your people. If you're in an agency and, the first thing that's coming to my mind is Chris Paradiso. They do a really good job at Paradiso Insurance with just any sort of giving campaign. They do a lot of giving. So right now, well, not to date the episode, but it's October and they're doing a reverse trick or treat, right? And so every other day you'll see a picture of their update on what they're going to donate to a hospital or stuff like that. What I mean? It's simple stuff that we have these little, crazy computers in our pocket, right? That you just take a photo, you just start taking a video and Steven finds that he's off and he's at something cool. He's like, you know, I'm just going to make a video right here, right now. And I just think, you know, it's people see social media super daunting, but with these phones and with all the resources, it's very easy to kind of get going and get started. And, you know, you might think it's kind of silly, but, you know, we're all just in it together, right? We just want to see each other and whatnot. So,
You know, one last thing that I'm thinking of too, that is maybe a good starting point. And please, I am not even close to expert in any of this stuff. I just try to figure it out just like everybody else. But something else I've found success with is like taking a picture of your coffee meeting, tagging the person you're with. We had a great meeting. Here's what we discussed. That's a form of documenting. What does that do? Gets you in front of the circle of the other person that you were with. You're highlighting them. You're highlighting the place that you were at. You're checking all these boxes off with that one thing, and just shows, oh, there's Steven, there's T5, there's Bob Smith out in the community. They were doing that thing. I know Bob. I didn't know Bob knew Steven. That's kind of cool. Relatable, getting that connection. So, yeah, I think it's all relative. You know, Jeff, I look back at my notes here. I think we didn't give this point enough attention because it's so important. It's going to be added into my regular thing from now on, is being intentional with engaging with your audience and others, right? Taking 5 minutes a day, literally. And I think most powerful could be like on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn's a lot of like, hey, you know, people got new certificates, people started new jobs, and just commenting, congratulations, great idea, love to see this. Take 5 minutes a day and do that. And again, you're creating that connection without creating that connection face to face. And then when that face to face opportunity comes, it's more of a soft intro than it is nobody knows each other.
Yeah, it's super simple. Like, I mean, so we have, you know, obviously I'm the social media manager at Hawksoft. I'm on social media like essentially all day, right? I see it all. But we have somebody who's our VP of carrier relations, and, you know, he's an older gentleman, Jerry Fox, very nice. And he tells me every day, he'll go, you know, I open my phone in the morning, I look at social media for 10 minutes, I do some likes, a couple comments, and then I'm on with my day. I'm like, perfect. And I'm just like, that's all we need. You know, that's all I really ask. You know, it's just, you know, it's all about that long game, right? It's all about that, you know, Jerry comments on a photo or likes a photo, and then like further down the line in a couple months, someone recognizes him because they liked their content in the past. You know, it's just that long game of, you know, if you want to succeed in the short game, you need to have set the long game in the past, right? Like, if something's going to happen right now,
that's good.
Yeah, it's just, I think I actually might have taken that from Forbes, because I talked about that.
No, it's quoted here now.
Yeah,
Jeff White.
It's
already quoted.
No, but it comes down to the short game is most effective after the long game has laid the groundwork. It's just as simple as that, right? So, you know, you may be interacting with someone's content, you know, 4 or 5 times over 6 months, but then, you know, they'll see that on month 8 and be like, oh, I remember Steven, you know, had this great coffee meeting with this guy. This guy was, you know, blah, you know, whatever. And then you're connected. So it's all about the long game. And I think in social media, it's really hard to not focus on that, because we want that instant gratification, those likes, those comments, and all that. And we all like it, right? It's that little endorphin rush, but you just got to work on that long game, and the long game is important. And then just kind of the last thing I'll say, and you know, Steven, you said, you know, you're nowhere near an expert at that. And what I'll say is, I don't think anybody is.
100%.
I don't think anyone's an expert at social media. It's changing so much. So I think what you need to do as an agent or anyone is just figure out what works for you and do it. Like, you found that content works well, great, keep doing it. Like, you know, you just never know. And I don't like people that claim to be social media experts. You know, it's weird for me to come on this podcast and, like, you know, talk like an expert. I'm just using my 10 years of expertise. So I don't think anyone's an expert in this. We're all just trying, and it's also changing. You know what I mean? The algorithm changes a day. Like, I'll get an email saying, you know, what was it? Twitter now lets block people see, I don't know, something weird. It's like, it changes like that, you know?
Yeah.
So I just think it's hard to really, don't be afraid if you don't see yourself as an expert. You know what I mean? Just see what works for you. And, you know, the people that will interact and like see your content, they just like you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's a little bit of my soapbox there, because I just feel like calling someone a social media expert is a little silly. But
yeah, well, and 2 things I want to say before we end here, Sean, and then if there's something you want to your exact point of just finding what works. I think Sean and I are perfect examples of that. Sean does very well on LinkedIn. I do very well on Facebook. and vice versa, not as well as the other, right? I mean, and it just,
Yeah,
there's
100%.
no rhyme or reason. It just is the way that we've built our audience, use our content, whatever it is. Like Sean put out a post the other day on LinkedIn. It's got like 4,000 impressions. Like that, like just makes sense. Sean put it out. Like he has great engagement there. He knows what he's doing from that front. He's consistent with that. You'll see a new LinkedIn post from him every day. And like vice versa with Facebook. We do a lot of our podcast stuff through Facebook because it's community and that's where people are in community. And so I think I just wanted to relate that. But the last point is just like start something small. And like, it doesn't need to be a big podcast. It doesn't need to be this crazy investment. Like I'm thinking right now, make like a small business spotlight in your community where you just spotlight one business every Wednesday and just post their storefront and their information and spotlight them. Like something that drives traffic. That's not just, did you know why replacement cost is different than ACV? Well, yeah, that's important. But again, in my opinion, and that's all that this is, be the person that they want to know that's going to help them handle that. And when they do want to know you for that, then you can educate them on that because that's our job as independent agents. But be relatable in that sense and start small. Sean, anything you want to wrap up on that point?
No, that's it. I rambled a lot this episode, so I'm good.
I'm excited for to see your journey, Sean. Didn't you? Your LinkedIn post was the YouTube series about, and I'm gonna watch that. I saw that and I was like, "Yeah,
thank you, man. I appreciate that."
Let's talk about that and hold them extra accountable right now.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Well, it's supposed to go. Today's the 23rd of October. Hopefully next week will be the first.
Okay.
It's going to be a weekly vlog, basically.
Yeah.
About going from scratch to $1 million+ in revenue. So yeah, I'm excited to get that. I'm excited to get that going. I'm going to post some of the short clips. Yeah. Part of the reason I did it is so I'll have some pillar content where I can take short clips from that long form video, which I can use on Instagram and things of that nature. So
yeah,
and Jeff, I've gotten to know Sean real well, and I just saw the look on his face of like, oh, Jeff, don't say that. It's kind of like when he did his rebrand, and every week leading up to the rebrand announcement, I knew about it. I'm like, hey, Sean, you got anything you want to tell us about? Got anything you want to talk about? No,
I remember that. I remember the rebrand. I remember all of a sudden it was because I wanted to look you up in our system, and I was like, LAF Advisors, right? And I was like, wait a second, and I looked you up again. It was Sound Harbor. I'm like, that's clean. I'm like, I like that.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, it looks good, and I'm excited to see, at Hawksoft again. Like, I know we haven't talked a lot, but we just are, I know, you're not a user of Hawksoft. We just want you to be successful. We want everyone to be successful in this industry. If you even talk to our founders, like we just want the independent agents to be successful. That's what we're about, and that's why I'm saying I'll watch it because I will. But also, like we're still cheering you on. We're not just. I'm not saying other people do that, but yeah, well, I'm excited. So you said next week. Okay, I'll have to put a reminder in or something. But I like vlogs too, right? I think Bradley Flowers did one of them, or does them usually, like making the donuts, right? Mm-hmm. Where he does them kind of infrequently, but they're always fun to see, right? Because he does his trips and he goes and speaking and stuff like that. So vlogs are really cool for sure. So I'm excited for you.
Yeah, it's
thanks,
great.
Man. I appreciate it. I'll be at my desk a lot more than Bradley Flowers, but we'll get there.
Yep, you will.
That's a nice pen you got too, Sean. That's a really good looking pen. Before we wrap this up,
it's a good looking pen.
Jeff, where can everybody get in touch with you? Follow Hawksoft, follow the journey, and learn more about what you guys are doing.
Yeah, so with Hawksoft, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, we're just Hawksoft /Hawksoft. Well, LinkedIn, I think it's Hawksoft Inc. I've been trying so hard to get just Hawksoft, but somebody somewhere has it. And then me personally, LinkedIn, just, Jeff White, I think it's 019 is like my URL because there's a lot of Jeff Whites. And then on X or Twitter, I think it's real Jeff White. You can just kind of follow us there. For me personally on Twitter, I usually just do, I don't do a whole lot, but on Mondays I try to do a meme Monday where I do a meme in relation to insurance marketing or just marketing in general or just the industry. And so that's kind of where you'll find us. And, for Hawksoft, hawksoft.com, have any questions, we're little cheerleaders for independent insurance agents. So that's where you can find us.
That you are. Appreciate all you do. Thanks for joining us today, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Check out the YouTube channel. That's continuing to grow. And make sure to check out our Telegram at scratchagencypodcast.com. Click the big orange button that says join our Telegram. And make sure to go share or follow Sean on Instagram so you can get all that playbook and all that good stuff. Everybody, most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, and own your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.